What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 216 of the Untame the Wild Soul podcast. I am your host, Elizabeth D'Alto, and this is Sunday Sermon number 18. If you're new to the podcast or this is your first Sunday sermon, these are shorter solo episodes, just 10 to 20 minutes, where I do oracle readings, share my favorite prayers, poems, and excerpts from what I'm reading, or something similar. They're like wild and untamed gospel, heart ponderings, and delicious morsels of wisdom to spark your own truth, power, and love from my wild soul to yours. In these episodes, I explore creative and inspiring ideas, thoughts, and ruminations for you to be nourished and fed by going into your week. As a person who was raised with religion, another inspiration to create these sermons was to provide a Sunday ritual that's more aligned with my current and ever-evolving spirituality and worldviews. That said, all belief systems are welcomed here on the show. My truth, ponderings, and curiosities are simply that, my own. So no matter what your faith is, may you get exactly what you need from listening to this. And may you remember always that everything you've ever needed has always been inside of you. You are made from love, you are love, and you are loved. In today's episode, I want to talk about starting before you're ready. Really, I want to make a case for starting before you're ready. And what I'm going to use to make that case is the preface to the second edition of my book, Untame Yourself, Reconnect to the Lost Art, Power, and Freedom of Being a Woman, which you can grab on Amazon in print or Kindle, and soon, not quite yet, but soon it'll be up on Audible as well. And the reason why I'm going to use that is writing my book was definitely something that I just never was going to be ready to do. And so I just decided to do it in 2015. And doing it served me up with so many lessons, so much connection to my audience, so many experiences that I couldn't have had otherwise. And so let me read you the preface to the book, and then I'll riff a little bit on making a case for starting things before you're ready. And before I read the preface, though, I just want to remind you that you don't have to be someone with aspirations of writing a book or starting a blog or having an amazing Instagram account or doing even anything where you're some kind of brand or thought leader or business. This can apply to you starting anything before you're ready. Maybe putting yourself out there to date. Maybe trying something new that you've never done before. Maybe going paddleboarding. Maybe traveling to a place you've never been to. Maybe it's something as simple as trying a food that you've never tried before. You've probably heard me say this on the podcast, interviews, or other Sunday sermons before. But I truly don't believe in mistakes. I only believe in lessons. I only believe in curiosity. I only believe in surrendering to whatever is, whatever wants to be. And choosing that viewpoint, choosing to live from that perspective, frees me up for a lot more acceptance, a lot more gentleness, softness, peace, and as well, a lot more miracles in my life. And I've seen my women in my community, in my programs, my clients, my students, even my Wild Soul Movement teachers who I've trained, I've seen it have massive impacts on other people's lives as well, which is why I return to this over and over and over again from different angles and from different contexts. So maybe today is the day that it might land for you differently than it ever has before. So here's the preface to the second edition of the book. I'm writing this preface in November of 2017, almost 2 years to the day of this book's original published date. I'm sitting at the Soho House in Malibu, and I live here now, which finally stopped feeling surreal just last week, almost 3 months after my move. When you get to the chapter where I share my personal story, you'll see why this is significant. I can hear the waves crashing on the shore from where I'm sitting, and to my right, out the window, I could see them too. Sunlight is glistening on the surface of the ocean. It's breathtaking. A friend recently told me she once heard that's what our souls look like, which is why when we see it, the bright light glistening, shimmering on the water, we become instantly induced with awe. That awe may actually be a recognition. I don't know if that's true, but I love the way it feels when I consider it. I'm adding this short preface because this is the second edition of the book. I've made a few minor edits and experienced one very pleasant surprise. I'll tell you about it in a moment, but first, a confession. When I first published this book, I didn't love it. It felt like a creative discharge, something I had to do to move on with my life and make more things. It was as if I had to get all the teachings, ideas, concepts, lessons, and practices you're about to absorb out of my system so I could be available for more. This book was like a digestive enzyme for me. It didn't feel like a polished, great piece of work. Part of that was due to how I published it. I worked with a self-publishing company that helps you get your book done in 90 days. Truly, that's what I needed at the time to just get it done, but it felt rushed and I knew there was so much more I could have included. Then a cool thing happened. The book was in the world and reviews started pouring in on Amazon. It was really helping people. And it has somehow managed to stay in the top 50 in its category, Women's Personal Growth, on Amazon all 2 years, next to authors like Oprah, Brené Brown, Glennon Doyle, Anne Lamott, and Sue Monk Kidd. Pinch me, right? I started getting tagged in posts on Facebook and Instagram where people were sharing incredible insights they were having while reading it. People were emailing me how one part or another changed their lives. I couldn't dislike my book as much anymore because it wasn't about me, and it was answering the prayer I say every single morning. Use me, move me, make me a force for expansion, for love, for good, and for healing. I also heard 3 different authors, Wayne Dyer, Carolyn Myss, and Neil Strauss, say essentially the same thing in their own way. That if you're not embarrassed by what you once wrote, you're not growing. And if you never disagree with what you've formerly written, you're probably not progressing. That helped. But here's the pleasant surprise. In October 2017, I finally booked a studio to record the audiobook. Readers and podcast listeners have been asking me to since the book first published. Luckily, the book is pretty short, so I only needed 1 full day. That was intentional, by the way, keeping the book short. I wanted people to be able to finish it, digest it, and come back to it over and over again, like I have with one of my favorite go-to books, The 4 Agreements, over the years. Anyway, as I read my book aloud, sitting inside a little sound studio in Glendale, California, I fell in love with the book, and I realized I'd been using the tools and practices shared in these pages so consistently and diligently that the judgment I previously held for myself in the book had dissolved, and I could actually see what everyone else had been seeing for the last 2 years. Funny how that works, right? I wanted to share that with you before you dive in because we're all creative beings and we all have those inner critics. We judge ourselves, we're hard on ourselves at times. Even those of us who are pretty good at not doing those things, we still do it at times in certain circumstances. So this is my way of inviting you to put yourself forward, to put your work, your voice, yourself out into the world in whatever way you feel compelled. Even imperfect effort can have big impact. The tools, practices, teachings, and stories in this book will help you. Enjoy, and thank you so much for reading. So that's the preface of the book, and I want to come back up to this part here because it's not something I'd ever experienced, at least not consciously, before. The part where I said, when I first published this book, I didn't love it. It felt like a creative discharge, something I had to do to move on with my life to make more things. It was as if I had to get all the teachings, ideas, concept, lessons, and practices you're about to absorb out of my system so I could be available for more. And I'm super curious in your own life, however that might apply to you, what might you need to get out of your system right now? What have you not tried? What have you not done? What have you not said? What have you not allowed yourself to feel? What have you not allowed yourself to experience? What have you maybe started and not finished? What have you not seen all the way through or all the way to the bottom of? That could be the reason why you feel like you can't move forward. It was fascinating to me when I realized that it would be better to just move something through me and out of me than to not do it. So no matter what's going on in your world, or where you are, or what your thing is, how might that apply to you? This could be an amazing journaling exercise. This could be an amazing conversation prompt, perhaps with people who you know, who you care about, who you trust. And the thing is, I wasn't ready to write a book. I just knew that it was something I had to do. I hated just about every second of writing the book. By the way, those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a long time have probably heard the Martha Beck episode where she shared the Ernest Hemingway quote that goes something along the lines of, "I hate writing, I love to have written." And we could take writing out of that sentence and put anything else in there. Those of you who clean your house, right? I hate cleaning, I love to have cleaned, right? Or maybe it's showering. I hate showering, I love to have showered. Maybe you love showering. I don't know. I'm just throwing out random examples. I hate eating, I love to have eaten. Whatever it is. So start before you're ready is the theme here. And that might mean having to suspend your doubt, having to suspend your fear, and having to just trust in service and faith and inspiration and creativity or connection or impact or even intention over any of those things. And what's cool is I really had no expectation because I just needed to get the book out of my system. I had no expectation for what it would do. So that's kind of a fun aspect of starting before you're ready and allowing yourself to do something just to do it. Doesn't necessarily have to be attached to a big vision. The big vision can just be completing the thing, finishing the thing, doing the thing, no matter what it is, how involved it is, how intricate it is, how complicated, how expensive, how inexpensive. It could be a free thing that you want to do. So these are my musings. I hope you find them useful today. As always, you can find the show notes at untameyourself.com/episode-216. You can also find me on social media at Elizabeth D'Alto on all the platforms where people hang out on social media. If you want to share the impact this episode had on you, let me know what came up for you. Let me know what you're going to give a shot. Let me know what you're going to finish. Let me know what you're going to do that you haven't been doing, maybe sparked by this episode. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.